2022. I'm here with the father of Jurek, Dieter Döpfer. How are you?
Fine, how are you? Glad to see you.
How are you? How is your Superbooth so far?
Please?
How are your Superbooth so far?
Yeah, great. It's nice weather and we are out in the nature, as you can see.
You have a really nice place here.
Yeah, it's a nice place here.
It's a little hood here. It's a little camping hood.
Yeah, it's like a small camping ground. Well, and it's so totally different from other shows like NAMM or earlier the Musikmesse. It's totally different. It's a lot of fun.
Let's talk a bit about your history, because you were the inventor of Jurek, basically. You started at one of the first companies, and how the Jurek world has evolved now from where you started and to now. Are you happy to see this, or?
Yeah, of course I'm happy to see it. So many people ask me about that, and I said when we started, we were nearly the only ones who did that, and many people said nobody needs that. It doesn't make sense to build modular synths. That's old stuff. But I said no. I wanted to have it for me in the first place. And if there are a few other guys who like it, I would be happy about that. This was about 1995 about, yeah. And we showed our first few modules at the Musikmesse in 1995. And I said, okay, let's hope it will be fine for, let me say, 5 years would be great. If it would last 10 years, fantastic. So, but now, in the meantime, our company exists since 30 years, and the Eurorack or the A100 standard more than 25 years. I would never have expected that, and it's still growing. We had last year, 2021, we had the best year of the company ever. So it's something I never expected when I started.
I find it very impressive to see that your standard becomes after 10 years after the introduction known. That's a rare thing. And now when I see that there are 170 developers on Superbooth, and there's probably 140 or 30 on Jurek, and it's only a part of it.
Right. Yeah, I think it was a good idea when I started to publish everything, all the technical details and the mechanical details. And I remember the first few guys who asked me if it would be okay if they also design modules and offer them. I said, okay, this would be great. It does not make sense that we are the only one. It's much better if there are many companies who follow this standard, because then the users will be more confident that they are able to expand the systems in the future. If there would be only one company, everything would depend upon this one company. And so it was, after all, excellent that all the other manufacturers used our standard.
So in your 30 years history, how many modules do you have developed so far?
Yeah. We have more than 150, but for 25 years it's not that much. If you divide it 150 by 25, it's not that much.
Wow. That's pretty impressive.
But it's interesting, there are most of the modules where we started in 1995 are still available without any changes. For example, the standard VCO A110, it's still available since 25 years with the same front panel and the same circuit than 25 years ago.
You are developing here in Germany, and you are developing in Germany.
Yeah.
And manufacturing you are doing outside of Germany.
Yes and no. Our manufacturer is here in Germany, but he has subcontractors in the Czech Republic.
Okay.
So the invoices and so on, they come from German company, but I know that the PC board assembly and soldering partly takes place in the Czech Republic.
But I always put the relationship of the Dupfer with silver modules, silver front panels. Is it something you decided to make silver, or it was really just make?
It has to do with our relation to Kraftwerk at that time, because especially Florian Schneider of Kraftwerk said, "Oh, we want to have everything in silver." That's the idea why we started in silver. But at this time, most of the measuring equipment, which was available at a similar standard, they also had silver panels. So at this time, silver was kind of a standard, and nobody used black front panels. It has to do with the fact that a bright panel with a black printing is much easier to recognize than a black panel with white printing. Even some of our customers, they started with black panels and the white printing, and they said it's the hell on stage sometimes if it's dark to see all the white printing on the black panels. The other version with a bright background and black printing is easier to recognize.
But we saw now in the Eurorack there's tons of new stuff. There's analog, digital, hybrid. We have tons of this here with the wavetable, samplers, how many different filter types, envelopes. Do you think we arrived at a point where we have most of the stuff, or are there still domains where we can expand into the Eurorack?
Well, it's difficult for me to answer these questions because I don't know what is available. I know only a few companies and a few modules. There are thousands of modules available with functions I even don't understand partly. So it's difficult to say.
Another question is, Dieter Dupfer using other modules from other companies?
Yes, partly. In the past I did it very often. Especially in the beginning, when we had not that many modules available. It was funny, after the NAMM show, after the Musikmesse, all the manufacturers went in the evening for dinner, and then there was kind of module exchanging. If you give me that module, can have two of these, and so there were a lot of mixed systems available in the beginning, because not everybody had everything. So we had modules from Plan B or from Livewire and so on to cover all the needs.
And you had last year, last week, a pretty impressive module, this frequency shifter. And you told me now before our video that it was quite a challenge to design this or to manufacture this.
It was especially a lot of work because we wanted to reduce the adjustments. In a normal frequency shifter design, we have a lot of trimming potentiometers which have to be calibrated very carefully, and it's very time consuming because each trimming potentiometer adjustment affects the adjustment of the others. So you have to adjust one trimming potentiometer after the other, and then begin at the first one because everything affects each other. It's very complicated. It takes a lot of time. We had a frequency shifter many years ago with this design, with these many trimming potentiometers, and we said that's something we want to avoid for the new one. And the dome filter is part of the frequency shifter, and this is the part which is very detailed for adjustment. So, and we decide no, there should be no trimming potentiometer in there. So we use high quality resistors with 0.1% tolerance and capacitors, and we calculated everything very carefully, and so there's no longer need for the adjustment of the dome filter, and this was why it took such a long time.
And it's not a clone or replica of the Bode frequency shifter.
No, it's after all frequency shifters have the same working principle. You have ring modulators, you have a so-called dome filter which shifts the incoming audio signal by 90 degrees for each frequency. You have summing, subtracting and so on. So the basics are the same, but which kind of ring modulator you use, what is the design of the dome filter and so on, that's totally different. And our filter, it's not a copy of the Bode, it's just the basic principle, which is nothing but a trigonometric equation. There's a trigonometric equation with sine and cosine and so on, and this is the base for all frequency shifters. How you realize the circuits in the real world, there are different approaches, and we did our own one. It's not the same as in the Bode.
And what I see on the market now is that some developers are shifting in new directions. Is it maybe because maybe your opinion is because we have everything? It's like we have all the oscillators, we have filters, we have effects. Is it possible that the developers are now shifting more to more exotic ideas?
Yeah. Well, the question is, what do you need in a modular system? For example, we also last year offered a light sensitive module. The question, do you really need a light sensitive module? Is it necessary? Or something like the theremin, we also have the theremin modules. So the question is, maybe there will come video modules or whatever, I don't know. Or voltage controlled brain modules or whatever. So
I think video synthesis in modular is not yet that explored. There could be far more.
Yeah. So I think it's only the limitations of the human brain which could be introduced into the modular system.
You have something on your booth also where I think that people are splitting into groups if we really need a modular keyboard or not, because there's a key stem and some other cheaper keyboards. But if you really need a dedicated modular keyboard where you can host module inside, or you can trigger the sounds or something for polyphonic.
Yeah. I think the term polyphonic is for our modules a little bit misleading, because it's not a copy of a normal standard polyphonic construction. The idea is to have polyphonic modules like polyphonic filters, VCAs, envelope generators, VCOs in the system, but the idea is not to copy a polyphonic synth. The idea is to use the polyphonic modules in the modular system with other modules. And I can show you, if you want, the idea behind that.
Sure.
Yeah. So what we have here now is a standard polyphonic patch with 4 VCOs, 4 filters, 4 ADSRs, and the associated envelope generators. And now I have it arranged in the normal polyphonic structure, as you know it. You have a keyboard where you can play polyphonic, and with the polyphonic interface, the VCO and the gates of the envelope generators are controlled, after all, by the keyboard. That's what most of the customers or musicians expect from a polyphonic synth. But that's not the idea, it's just for demonstration. what you, for example, can do, replace the gates which come from the keyboards by the gates coming from a trigger sequencer. And for this, I have here a switch where I can switch the gates from the keyboard to the switch of the trigger sequencer. That's what I do now. The gates are no longer coming from the keyboard, but from the trigger sequencer, where you have 4 rows, and each row controls one of the polyphonic voices. And the CVs are now still coming from the keyboard. And in the next step, I disconnect all the CVs also from the keyboard and use another module which is we showed last year at the Super Booth. It's a random module which generates 4 control voltages, 4 random control voltages, and now I switch from the from the keyboard CVs to the CVs of the random module. For this I have to switch this. What you now hear is a polyphonic sound with control voltages we are totally random. They are not quantized. That means any kind of voltage can come from the unit. But if you want to return to more musical sounds, you can quantize the signals. You can go, for example, to semitones. So it's a little bit more structure in there, or to scale, or to the chords. Becomes more musical now. If you want more chaotic sounds, you go back to the continuous, where all kind of CVs. So that's just as an idea how polyphonic modules can be used without the standard structure which normally people think about polyphonic.
So you are trying to give us here an explanation that polyphonic is not thinking in a classical way, that you have 6 voices, 8 voices, or playing the same notes, but playing polyphonic in a modular way.
So maybe the term polyphonic modules was somewhat wrong. Maybe we should have called them, I don't know, quad modules or something. We should not use the term polyphonic, because that's a little bit misleading. In the A100 you have gate signals, you have CV signals, and it's totally up to you how you connect them. You can create totally different structures which are no longer polyphonic in the usual meaning. Yeah. So that's the idea of our polyphonic module.
And for Superbooth 22, you have a stereo filter, a new stereo filter in your rack.
Right? It's this one.
Is it a new design from you, or is it a vintage chip?
No, it's after all, it's 2 filters, and the filters are the same as the filters from the Dark Energy 2. It's because many of the customers said, okay, the filter of Dark Energy 2 is a good idea, and the idea of the stereo filter is you have 2 filters with common controls for both filters. For example, this is the frequency control which affects both filters, but you also have individual controls. For example, this is used in addition to this control to change the frequency of filter 1, and this is for filter 2. The same is for the resonance. You have a common resonance control, but you also have individual controls for resonance. So you have always the possibility to control the parameters of the 2 filters simultaneously or individually for each. So you, even in this context, the term stereo is a little bit misleading. After all, these are 2 filters which can be controlled common or individually. you can use them also as two separate filters, as a stereo filter, or you may even daisy chain them. It's because you have also a very interesting feature. You can morph continuously between the different filter types.
So it's a bit like the Zen filter from Oberheim.
Yeah, it's a little bit like that. You have a control where you can morph from low pass via notch to high pass and to band pass, and you have a link switch where you can define if this is the master control for both filters, or in this position you have two separate controls, so you can adjust two different filter types for filter 1 and filter 2. So for stereo, you would normally link them together. So you have this control to adjust the filter type for both filters. If you use them separately, you will probably turn it in this position. So you have individual adjustment of the filter type for each filter.
So we can expect again this a bit not dirty, but a bit more characterful sound that the Dark Energy has, the filter.
Yes.
But it's not the filter from the Dark Energy 1.
No, it's not the Dark. The Dark Energy 1 was a 24 dB Curtis low pass filter. The Dark Energy 2 is a multi-mode 12 dB filter, and it's our own design. It's not a copy of, it's not a clone of another.
Can we hear it?
Yes, of course. The polyphonic structure which I have here is running through the filter, and we can simply start it. Now we have low pass filter. So both filters are now simultaneously controlled by this one, and this is the low pass. And we can now morph from the low pass via the notch filter to the high pass. We also have a very interesting control. It's this one. It's called the delta F. That means it's the spread or the difference between the two frequencies of the filter. You can adjust them manually. The frequency of one filter goes up, and simultaneously the frequency of the other one goes down. This is the manual control, and you also have a CV input for this function. In this example, I have an LFO, which is used to control the spread, and this is the attenuator or the polarizer for the LFO. Two low pass filters. All of the parameters are also controllable by external voltages. You can control the filter type, the morphing. You can control, of course, the frequency in different ways. You have individual CV inputs for each filter. You have a common CV input for both filters with a common control. So after all, you have all possibilities of two filters to control them in common or individually.
And you have some other modules for the SuperWoof 22?
Yeah, we have some simple tools. For example, this one, it's nothing but 4 attenuators. It's nothing special.
But it's super handy if your module don't have any attenuators on board.
Right.
Yeah.
So I haven't patched it because it's self-explaining. And also we have, which I can show here, is another mixer. it's a mixer where you have for each input a switch which can be used to turn the input on, to turn it off, or to turn it on with inverting. For some applications, it's essential that you are able to invert the signal, especially when you want to mix control voltages. It's a difference if the ADSR goes positive or if it goes negative, also for LFO signals. And it's also essential if you want to mix audio signals which are correlated to each other. If you mix two separate VCOs, it's no different if you mix them positive or negative. But if you have correlated audio signals, it's very important if you mix them inverted or non-inverted. And I will show you an example of the frequency shifter which we showed in September last year here at the Super booth. Let me see if I can get a sound. What we now hear is nothing but the normal frequency shifter sound. In this patch I use an external oscillator for the frequency shifting. I will tell you later why I do this. It has to do with the possibility to switch the external oscillator to very low frequencies. And the first thing I show you is what happens if the frequency of the modulating oscillator goes very low. So we start with the normal frequency modulation sound. The sound you maybe you know from the frequency shifter. But what we do now is we reduce the frequency of the modulation oscillator, which leads to totally different sounds. What we hear is, after all, a frequency shift in the hertz range, but for the human ear, it's a psychoacoustic stereo effect, which is no longer recognized as a frequency shifting. And what I show here in connection with this filter is that I have input number one for the normal audio signal. It's nothing but a sawtooth. That's what we heard now. And the second input in this patch is used to feed back a little bit of the frequency shifter output to the second input. It's similar to the feedback in a normal filter, which leads to the typical resonance effects. And the result is like that. So it sounds similar to resonance of a normal filter, but it's not a filter. It's a feedback of the frequency shifter. And you also have another possibility to change the sound, because the frequency shifter has a control where you can select between the upshift, mix between up and downshift, or the downshift. What we so far heard is the upshift in the feedback. Go to the mix, sounds different, or to the downshift, which sounds also different again. Yeah, I think these are sounds you would normally not expect from a frequency shifter. It's just the feedback is one special patch, and the other one is to use an external, very low working oscillator instead of the built-in.
That's,
Yeah,
that's exactly what I said with exotic modules. That brings new chambers to your unknowns, because often we have heard only the typical analog sounds, but it sounds so unique and like vocalish, vocal, very harmonic. Yeah.
and it's so handy. You can see what happens. You can see in the patch what happens. Okay, I take a little bit of the output, add it to the input, and mix the feedback signal with the incoming signal. Replace the internal oscillator by a lower working external oscillator. Well, that's one of the main features and what makes the modular so interesting.
And this A138 Janus is the new one for.
Yeah, it's the new one.
Okay.
We called it, in the first one we called it the Janus filter, the Janus filter, because it's a Greek god with two heads. I'm not sure if you know it, because you can use the inverted signal or the non-inverted signal. That's why we use the J for the filter.
Okay. Then we know the filter's coming already this year.
Yeah, it's coming very soon. The filter is already in production. We only had problems with the first front panels, so the front panels have to manufacture again. I expect that the filter will be available in June. And also the quad attenuator as well as the new mixer will be available in summer, maybe end of June or July.
The module that many people are looking for, the new render module is also coming in.
Yeah, it's already in production, and this is available in May after the show. The first modules have been sent already to our distributor LX4 in Berlin, and they are available after the show.
Okay, and prices you can find on my website. On my article you can find it.
Okay.
Okay, big thanks, Peter. I wish you a good Super Bowl 22, because there's still one more day, today and tomorrow, so basically two.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank you.
And thank you for coming.
And big thanks for watching, and hope to see you again very soon. Bye.